Hello and welcome to the Genesis Edge VAV video series. My name is Charles Johnson, lead trainer and technical engineer at Lynxspring. And today we're going to be talking about the continuous commissioning on the Edge VAV system. So the continuous commissioning feature for the Edge VAV stations, it's an automated program that's going to commission each of the VAVs monthly. Each zone that's created on the supervisor is only going to commission its zone level VAV controllers. Each VAV is going to have its own system monitor graphic to monitor the state of the commissioning operation. So this graphic is going to contain a pop-up window to configure any of the local VAV commissioning settings. We're going to go through that. And of course, as each VAV completes its commissioning, a report is going to be generated and sent to the supervisor. Then each supervisor zone has a commissioning manager graphic to monitor the zone commissioning activities. Configuration settings for the zone commissioning manager, it includes providing the week, weekday, and time by the hour for when the commissioning cycle should start each month. And when the zone commissioning cycle is complete, each zone VAV commissioning report is then combined into a single zone commissioning report. So the continuous commissioning features of the VAV system provides customers with the means to ensure ready operation of a critical air quality and control system. Its configuration has been simplified so that the implementation just pretty much requires minimal effort. So if we're going to go ahead and talk about this, continuous commissioning is managed per AHU zone. So configuring this and control is handled through the zone logic graphic. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and go down into my Edge supervisor station here. I'm going to go into my config space and expand my drivers. I'm going to expand my Niagara network, and I'm going to go ahead and expand my air handler under my Niagara network, or my AHU folder. And now I have my zone folder, which here says floor 1. And as I expand that, there's this zone logic folder. So if I go ahead and click on this, I now see that I have the continuous commissioning here. So number one, if I click here, this is a link to the zone commissioning manager. If I link here, this links to the zone commissioning schedule. And of course, I can right-click on my commissioning state to deactivate the commissioning manager. And we have that in here in case during the summertime, you may not want the electric heat to come on, or really the heat to come on. Now, maybe if you have a hot water system and you're doing some kind of dehum, like, okay, but realistically, we don't want to bring on the heat during the summer. It's not really needed. So this allows us to disable it for a few months. Or you can actually do that in the commissioning schedule as well. And should we need to manually start the commissioning cycle outside of the normal scheduled time, it's useful during installation or commissioning the system to get a zone level report. And I'm going to be using this feature to show you what the process looks like. So as I go to the commissioning manager, I can see now that it looks at some of the highlights here. So we've got the commissioning state and status of each VAV. So when the commissioning actually runs, we're going to see the status here. Then I will, you'll see the status here, and it'll actually change. I'll do this for my air handler 2 that I have here. I've already done this for air handler 1 to show you what the reports look like. So if I go ahead and select zone report itself, now it brings up an entire PX page of all the commissioning reports that I have for this specific zone. So here I have a VAV1, or that's cooling only, a VAV2 that's no fan 4 stage, and I have a VAV3, which is a parallel fan 2 stage heat. So there's a whole commissioning process that it goes through, which I'm going to go over a little bit later in detail. But we can see that if there are any tests that pass or fail, it actually goes right here. So, there can be a heating section if necessary. It'll show you all the steps. And again, I'll go through that process at the end of what you should see and how these actually properly commission. But this is actually a link to the zone report. So you're going to see the VAV name, the equipment type, the commissioning date, the start date, and the finish time. You're also going to see the subject of the test, which in this case here is a cooling damper. You're going to look at the condition at which the conditions that are going to be tested. If there's a point name and value, it's going to be what is sampled for the sample measurement. If there's a set point differential, it'll be here. And we have green and red that will show what has passed and what has failed. And we can see here also that we went to attempt to go heating, to go to minimum airflow, and we failed that test here. And that's really because I just have these on a test board. These aren't wired up to any real pieces of equipment whatsoever. So let's go ahead and go back, just hit the back button here. So if I go back to the zone logic, it links to the commissioning schedule here, which sets to the first Saturday of the first week in every month. And again, if you wanted to, you actually could change this. You could change this to tailor to whatever needs you have, whether you want to commission it once a month, once a week, once a year, etc. That kind of thing. But again, like during the summertime, we kind of keep this disabled because, especially for electric heat, we definitely don't want to run that. But you can get that through the commissioning schedule here or the commissioning manager as well. The same schedule gets linked. And also we have archives here that if we had archives for other commissioning reports that we've done, they would actually show up here. So next, let's go ahead now and switch to the VAV controller to learn more about the VAV system monitor and the controller commissioning process. After we go through that, we'll then come back up here and go through Air Handler 2 and do a full commissioning, which you'll see in the process here. So the VAV system monitor allows us to monitor the device commissioning process. So if I go into the VAV controller and I go to the drivers, I expand my config space and then expand my drivers. I'm going to go ahead and collapse this here. So under drivers, we have quite a bit of folders here, but primarily we're going to be looking at this CX folder. Now, as I double click this folder, it's going to open up the VAV system monitor. And you can see that the upper section is divided into six sections for monitoring the system as the commissioning process progresses. So then we have the lower section, which actually displays the commissioning state and the various point overrides that are required. And you can actually control all the points in the system monitor except for the commissioning state and status. If we were to click on the gear icon here in the commissioning section, it'll actually bring up a pop-up dialog button, which is actually right here. So I'm going to go ahead and get back to that in a moment, but we can see all the general information of the VAV, room temperature here. We can see the pertinent information for the air handler. Then we can see the cooling flow. If we had a heating coil, we could see anything that we have here. Of course, how many stages, the heating demand. And then, of course, if we had a hot deck airflow, we would actually see that here, as well as anything with the auxiliary heating. So going back to the commissioning settings here, this pop-up dialog is used to fine-tune commissioning settings depending upon the unique box parameters of the VAV. So the first thing we have section here are the delay settings, and the damper delay time is that's the time in which the damper must reach a desired position or to allow for airflow to achieve its set point before it considers failing the test, which we have set to 2 minutes. The electric heat, analog heat, hot water valve, and SCR delay, these are the time delays before it measures the difference in discharge air temperature. So again, we have 5 minutes across the electric heat, analog heat, hot water, and then it's 2 minutes for the hot water valve and 1 minute for the SCR heat delay. So the electric heat's actually, this is the heat steps or heating relays. And this would be just for this is the time delay for the hot water valve or the floating actuator reheat control before measuring the difference. And this hot water valve time delay, this is the time delay that allows the hot water valve or floating actuator drive time before testing. So it's going to take 2 minutes to open the hot water valve, and then it'll take another 5 minutes to take a sample of the discharge air temp. Then we have the cooling damper setting. So this here is the actuator feedback threshold. So this is going to be the maximum percentage from position from cooling. Same thing with the hot deck. It's the same thing that applies. The VAV CFM set point threshold. This is the maximum percentage from set point before the cooling or hot deck airflow is considered to be at set point. And then the feedback steady time limit. This is the amount of time that the feedback must stay within the actuator feedback threshold before the test is actually considered to be passed. Then for the heating coil, this is the maximum percentage from the position before the cooling damper is considered at position. Then maximum percentage from set point before the cooling, heating, heating actuator. Sorry, I apologize, not cooling. Same thing here. This is for the minimum flow. And then same thing for the feedback steady time. So this is actually for the hot water valve. Then we have the discharge air set point threshold. So this is the maximum percentage before the discharge temps considered to be at set point. The heating increase. So this is the amount that the discharge air temp must increase to be considered a heating step to be a success. And then this here is the amount of time that the discharge air temp must stay within the set point threshold before it continues to the next step. And then we've got all the sampling settings that we hear. This is so the sample limit, that is the number of samples that are collected without deviating more than the sample percent change, which is 12 by default. Then the sample time limit, this is the time limit in which all required samples are collected. And if the time is exceeded, the test fails. And then the sample percent change, this is the percentage change limit before the sample collection is restarted. So now that we have gotten through all that, let's talk about the commissioning process as a whole. So the first thing that will happen is that the cooling damper or the hot deck damper are first both checked for proper rotation configuration. Then, depending upon the VAV type, it's going to go through a number of commissioning steps, and it's going to vary. So whether it's the cooling damper, which goes through damper open, damper close, airflow at 0 CFM, min flow and max flow. The hot deck damper does the same thing as the cooling damper. Then it's going to check for any kind of heating coil. So whether or not first we're going to min flow, then the fan on, no heat, stage 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing with SCR. It's going to go damper min flow, fan on, and then 0% heating, 100% heating. Same thing with the analog and floating control. It does the same thing. So the commissioning process for any fan power box is going to start the fan before engaging any heating. And all reheat commissioning starts with setting the cooling damper to a minimum airflow. So after each commissioning check, the samples are going to be collected and then put into a report, which is then sent to the supervisor. So I'm going to go ahead and get back to the Edge supervisor. And instead of air handler 1, floor 1, I'm going to go to air handler 2, and I'm going to go to, sorry, not the floor plan, but the zone logic. And I'm going to go to the commissioning manager. So if I look at a zone report, it's not going to bring anything up because I haven't run this yet. Obviously, the schedule is going to be the same. And of course, if there were archives, they would go here. So now what I'm going to do So I'm going to go ahead and go to my, I'm going to click on my zone logic. I was going to try to expand it and do whatever, but I'll just do it here. So this commissioning manual, I'm going to go ahead and just activate the zone commissioning. And now I'm going to go through back to the commissioning manager and let's see what it's going to do. So we see now VAV4 starts, and now it's going to run the actuator rotation check. And I'm going to go ahead and just keep the video running here so you can see what the process looks like. And this might take just a little bit, but just bear with me so you can see the process itself. And so just remember the actuator that we have here for the VAVs is not an integral actuator. This is the actuator coming off the AO that you have and one that you purchased separately. And so after the rotation check happens, we're then going to go to the cooling damper. Now, of course, it's going to try to do that and then potentially go to the heating. But again, because we don't have, any real, any real data here, it's just gonna fail some of those tests. But primarily, this is just here to show you how the commissioning process starts. Now, once it finishes going through its entire check, what's going to happen is that if I hit my Control T on, go to that real quick. So then if I click back on the zone logic, once it finishes the commissioning process, this is actually going to go back to disable. So it won't stay enabled for long. It only stays enabled until this whole process comes to full circle. I can actually hear the actuators going off in the background. So if you hear that noise, I apologize, but that's just I have a demo board with 5 VAVs, a couple Edge 534s, but the supervisor's running on a PC supervisor. I discussed kind of the layout that I use in a previous video, which I believe was actually just the Onyx Rapid Integration Tool video. Okay, so now it went back to disabled, and now it's going to check for the minimum airflow position. I don't think it's going to get to the maximum airflow. I think this is where it kind of stops for us. But again, it's going to try to take a change here across X amount of time. So, and what I'll probably do for VAV5 is I'll probably go ahead and pause the video after 4 finishes, and then come back in when VAV5 has finished its report, and then show you the zone report as a whole. But this is where you're not going to sit here and watch this. Obviously, this is just I'm just showing you here in the video. Just the whole process here, so people can see it. It's actually something I don't do in the live demonstration the live demonstrations that I do because we just don't have time to do it. But since I've broken down the video series, I can take a little bit of time to actually show this portion here. Okay, it's now disabled. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here while VAV5 finishes its stuff here, and then when I come back, I'll show you the zone report for that. Okay, so we're back. VAV4 and 5 have finished commissioning. So let's go ahead and look at the zone report to see what we can find. Okay, so we can see that VAV4 is a fan with 1 stage. We tried to go through the rotation here. It failed at the 75% and of course the 0 CFM setting here. Now let's look at the heating side here, which is actually or VAV, which is actually just a cooling only. So I decided to give it a few extra numbers here. So we can see that we've now gone through the rotation check. Then we did the full open, full closed, 0 CFM, min CFM, and max CFM here. And you can see what has passed and failed. So hopefully this gives you a better understanding of the commissioning process here. I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and you have a great and wonderful day.